Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Renaissance Room podcast. And in today's episode, I want to talk about choices. You know, growing up, I remember my dad always telling me that when it comes to choices, you have to choose, mindfully. And you have to be aware of the choices that you make because they can alter your life. And I've always kind of just been mindful of the choices that I was making from that moment forward. I remember I was 16, I got into a really bad car accident, and it just so happened that I totaled my car. I literally was coming down a hill. I spun on the other side of the road. Cars were coming up the hill. I completely smashed this brand new BMW. I didn't have any insurance. I took out a fire hydrant. It was so crazy. My little brother was in the car with me too, and by the grace of God, we had on our seatbelts. And the total front end of my car was completely smashed. The car was completely totaled. I had lost control. I think I had bad tires on top of that, and it was raining. And it was just a freaking disaster. And I look at my life now, and yes, there were consequences from that choice. But it just made me realize that there is grace. But it also made me realize the importance of choice. And I think that there was a moment in my life where, I talked about my dad a little bit in the last episode, and just the importance of forgiving your parents. But there was this moment when I sat with myself about my dad, and I was like, wow, what if my dad's a good guy? What if he's one of the good guys? And, I think about today's world and just how we are just seriously beating up on each other. I mean, from human to human, man versus woman, gay versus straight. That's why I've taken down the podcast about certain things, just because, as much as I have these opposing views and I want to raise a sense of awareness, it's just not my place to really go there with certain people and their orientation and their gender or whatever. And the reason being is because I think that life is hard. I really do. I think life is hard. And I just think that we just have so much division spewing right now. It's I just want to love, I just want to be loving. And I've always created my platforms to be a place of insight and a source of love and just kind of a haven and a cornerstone. And I just rather just continue to do that. There are some things I do believe, and then there are some realities that I am confronted with, that I face each and every day, and I just realize that it's just hard for everyone, and so there's a profound sense of grace and compassion that I have for people, just when I just realized life, I think as you grow older, you just kind of start to realize that life is not easy, and you start to realize that, we make bad decisions, we make choices, but not everyone has had a guiding light. Not everyone has had a parent or a guardian figure. And even if they had a parent, right, they may not have had someone to raise them. They may not have, anything but what they have, and I was thinking to myself recently about a situation that I had with someone that I really loved. I loved as a friend, and the hard choice to kind of let the situation go and then let it be. I think when it comes to your sense of worth, that is that internal value inside of you. And that internal worth is not really for sale. It's not for sale, and it's not for you to convince anybody of it. I think that in today's world where there are many choices and many images saying this is what is, to be desired, this is what the landmark is, this is whatever. I think it's very easy to lose yourself in that. And I think, one of the things that I've learned just from empathizing and just watching others is that we don't realize it's we so easily forget our mortality, and not even just thinking in terms of cynicism, but more so we don't really take the time to sit and consider the things that matter most in life. And I think that with the many choices that are presented to us, it's so easy to take so many things for granted. We don't even realize the gift of commitment, right? The gift of a real friend, the gift of someone who cares about you, the gift of some and I think just when it comes to people in general, I think that we have really lost the art of appreciation and care for one another. You see it back in the day. I feel there used to be this time where it was older people would kind of be at home hanging out. They were all very loving, and our elders were our community, and they were the advocates for community and for connection and leaning on one another. But now the elders are like going down to Miami, and they're like, oh no, we're trying to relive this sense of youth, right? Like, we want to dye our beards and we want to get, thong bikinis, and we're about to go live our best lives, And I think that's very unfortunate, because I think when it comes to life, like, you should grow older, and we grow older for a reason, and we grow older to be role models and to share our wisdom on earth, for those who may need a guiding light. And I think it's very unfortunate now, because so many people are chasing after youth, right? And it's very clear to us that there is certainly a mass agenda in regards to pedophilia. There's certainly something odd going on there. At this point in time, I think from the aesthetics to what's popular, what's not popular, and again, just back to the obsession with youth. When it comes to my youth, one of the things I've learned living with elders is that I don't take it for granted. I make sure that I really live my life to the fullest. But I've always just kind of been someone who's just been very responsible. And I think I've always just really managed to balance that out, like in regards to youth, responsibility, and just kind of like that carefree, like that carelessness or whatever. But I think my overall thing that I'm saying is just like, I think we just so easily forget that we're going to grow old one day. And, when you have something special, whether it's a friend, whether it's a whatever, a freaking moment, take the time to like cherish that and like sit in that moment and like revel in that moment, because life goes on, and I'm not here to be sappy, but like, I want you guys to feel me. I think that we are just so consumed with ourselves and the agendas of the world that we don't really take the time to like sit and be like, okay, what's around me right now? Who's around me right now? How are they feeling? I talked about how suicide is actually very subtle, but it's there. And, people who commit suicide, it's one of those things that you have to be very empathetic to be able to discern it. And I think for myself, I realized that we just don't have that level of attention for one another anymore. We don't have that level of care. I think that we've been desensitized so much that we look at people as objects. We look at people as mere resources rather than like a gift from God. We don't look at people and say, wow, this is, someone that is sent from God. Now, we have so much division in Christianity and division in the church. It's like, oh no, this person is definitely sent from the enemy, and we don't say, hey, this person is a gift from God. Like, this person has a spirit, this person has a soul, this person has a life. We don't look at people like that anymore. Everyone is either good or bad, and it's no in between. We've really desensitized and stripped ourselves so much from community and just like being a human. It's crazy. But yeah, I think that suicide is it's a very subtle thing. And I think you have to be very empathetic to be able to discern it. I think a lot of times we are just really just very focused on ourselves. I think that it's just very hard to kind of step out of that, especially if you feel like you don't have the tools or the resources, or, if you're in a space where you're like, I don't really want to deal with this right now, right? We have to understand that we've moved into a space where like being there for our friends and like showing up and being caring and loving and empathetic towards one another has become emotional labor, right? We are all about protecting our energy. We are all about protecting the dead weight. Like, I'm not saying, yes, constantly be around people who are depressed and things like that, but I think that we have got to a point where we are just so far on the opposite side of care and attention that we just leave each other to fend for ourselves. I think there are a lot of people who have friends and things like that, and they just feel completely lonely. They look sad, and I think, again, it takes attention. I think it takes empathy. I think it takes honestly genuine concern, to be honest. And I'm not speaking on any one particular situation. I remember when I was young, it's so crazy. This is a very funny story, you guys. But I had connected with a elementary classmate, and I'll never forget it. We had connected online, and I was like super happy. I was going to tell him that I had this huge crush on him. And we talked briefly, and I remember him telling me that, he had killed someone. And he was like, says just like, I'm just like, this is just so crazy, and I keep thinking about it and stuff like that. And I remember in that moment, I didn't judge him, but I sat with him like empathetically, because he just seemed so remorseful, right? And I remember we were supposed to go out to this place. It used to be called French Fry Heaven. This story is about to make me so emotional. And like, I didn't text him because, we had talked like recently, like, like a text or something. And I think he like responded very vaguely. And I've always kind of had that like insecurity about myself. It would be like, I would always think like, oh, this person doesn't really like me like that. Like, just very engulfed and absorbed in my own stuff, right? I'm like, he didn't text me back. He didn't ask me what I was doing. I think the last message may have been like, oh, okay. Or, something vague of that. And, I didn't hit him up because we were supposed to hang out that night. And, like maybe the next day or the day after that, I got news that like he had shot himself. Whew. And I remember I was just like, because the signs were there. And it was crazy because we had just reconnected. And at the time I was like, that's so like, I didn't know him well enough but I knew that like, he wasn't that type of person. He told me that he had just kind of went away. He was like in a different state. And he was just like hanging with the wrong people, and he found himself in a gang. And like, that's what he pretty much had to do. We were really young too. Now, mind you, this was like maybe 2016, 2017. I was like just out of high school. Let me pause and come back. Okay. Yeah, just I had a moment there. I mean, like, of course I had a moment there. It was crazy, and I remember I was upset with myself because I knew I should have reached out to him. But I was just I was so absorbed with, oh, he doesn't really like me like that. Like, he didn't even text me back, completely negligent to what it is that, he told me. And I say this all the time, but like, fear makes us selfish. That's why you really have to walk by, the spirit of love. I talk to you guys about that a lot, like walking by the spirit of love and just, being loving. Cause like, fear makes us very selfish. Fear absorbs us. Cause it's like, first of all, it's false evidence appearing real. So where is that taking place? It's like mind, body, and soul. It's all within you. It's like internal. It's not even external. And so at the time, I wasn't even able to just kind of like step out of myself and just like be there for him. Now, I'm not by any means like sitting here advocating for quote unquote bad boys. Like, he was not that type of guy. Like, I'm telling you right now, he just wasn't. Like, he was always very quiet, like very loving, but he made a bad choice, and not in regards to like taking a life. I'm not speaking on that element of it, but more so like joining a gang, feeling like he needed to be popular. And I see that very commonly in a lot of guys. I'm like sometimes on public transportation, which is actually most times. I can't even really say sometimes. It's been a while, especially since I've been in the city. But, I hear some of the conversations that the younger guys have when they get on the bus, and it just saddens me, like, I always just kind of pray that like someone would create something for young boys and just like talk to them. And I think it's just a huge deficit in our community, to be honest, like in regards to the leadership, in regards to just brotherhood. Like, it's not a thing. But the young boy was talking about how he had a gun and all this different stuff. And I was reading my email the other day, and I got an article from the New York Times. I'm like a subscriber. Yes, I am. And they basically just kind of talked about how, I think it was like, out of all the other countries, the United States has a huge increase in death rates in regards to guns from like ages 1 to 19. And it's mostly common in Black boys. And I think about the gender wars and the conversations we're having about masculine and feminine. I think about the conversations we're having in regards to education or not education. Like, there's so much division. Like, you have to wake up and just kind of see that right there. Like, that is something that is alarming. And it's just very hard to kind of sit with, it's debilitating to our community. I heard someone say that we were like on the brink of a genocide, and I won't take it that far, but I just want to end this podcast by just saying, be mindful of the choices that you make, and, try to take a step outside of yourself. The gift of friendship, the gift of commitment, right? Marriage, relationships, the whole nine, it's a gift. Look at people like they are a gift sent to you by God, and of course use your discernment. Like, everyone's not running around here with a pure spirit. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. I think that's also the importance of being like equally yoked, because it's very hard to have this sense of like spiritual awareness and like this sense of like love for humanity and for certain people when they don't carry that same spirit, right? Like, you can easily find yourself in situations where you're in a whole spiritual warfare. So I'm not saying just be like super loving, because the thing is this, you guys, we haven't reached that point as humanity, like to where we're all just like super loving as a collective. Like, we're just not there, and people have their own spirits, right? So my point is, we talk about like being equally yoked. It is important to be around people, especially like in certain relationships, that do have that loving spirit of Christ, and they do have that mindset, because otherwise y'all not gonna love the same. You're gonna be like very forgiving. You're gonna, you're gonna be kind. You're gonna be loving like Christ, and they're gonna be like, oh, I'm about to. You see what I mean? They're not gonna be able to appreciate, nor are they gonna be able to reciprocate that, because they're not filled with that type of spirit. They don't have those convictions. You see what I'm saying? So that's why you just have to be mindful of the people you keep around you, because not everyone loves like you. That's that breakdown. And if y'all been following me for a while, y'all know we talk about how like I be breaking down memes and giving you guys some wisdom and context in regards to the things that you see. So yeah, with the meme that says not everyone loves like you, that reality, I'm sorry y'all, my dad's like, he's doing right now, like he's doing the most. When I say OD, I mean like he's being extra. But yeah, like when you see the things that like everyone don't love like you, that's like you can have that spirit of Christ, and you can have that spirit of conviction, and you can have like a pure and loving spirit. You can be in tune with yourself, and someone may not have that, so they may be looking at you like, okay, yeah, I'm finna extort or exploit or use for my own personal gain. Now, I think the detriment of that, again, goes back to using your discernment, because not everyone is coming to you like that. And I think if you can just kind of remain in a heart posture where you say, everyone really is a gift from God, like, try to look at people like that. Like, my point is, just be a little bit more positive, but don't be like overextending, and don't be like, use wisdom. Like, don't be casting your pearls to swine. Okay. Don't be casting your pearls to swine, but definitely use wisdom, and, get your heart posture right. I think like the times that we're going in today, it's just so easy to just write people off and just be so mean and just so cunning and all these different things. But like, you got to realize people got spirits, man. And I just think that if you really have someone who's like committed, like family, for example, I'm going to use family because let me just give you guys some context. When it comes to family, you can see the good in your family members, like if you really look for it. And I think that that's like the overall essence. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode, and I wish you guys the best. Choose wisely. Peace. The moment that we stop treating each other like our relationships are labor and emotional labor, right? Rather than a gift from God and an opportunity to grow, to love, to learn, to laugh, and to be present and just create memories. Until we reach that level of mindfulness, I think we'll always make bad choices. I think when we are insecure and we're fearful, we make bad choices.